San Francisco, Griffith Park in Los Angeles, the Flats in Cleveland, Seattle Center in Seattle, just about every major city. Now expect vigils, official and unofficial, to continue. At the risk of seeming cliche, Grateful Dead fans are unlike any other in the world. They're a devoted flock. They loyally follow the band from concert to concert for 3 generations. Now that brings up age. That's another unique characteristic of the Dead fan. The band was able to gain new fans while retaining old ones, amazing in the music industry. It was not uncommon to see the grandparents taking their grandkids to Grateful Dead shows.
David, do you think there's life for the Grateful Dead after Jerry Garcia?
I don't think so. Other members of the Dead have passed away, but Jerry Garcia was the heart and the soul of the band and its following. My guess is the Grateful Dead will be laid to rest along with Jerry Garcia. Dagny.
All right, thank you very much, David. We'll have more reactions from fans and friends of Jerry Garcia and show you the candlelight vigils across the country on the next E-News Daily.
Too. It was a spectacle.
I don't think you can attach all those kind of things to these events, you know. Living and dying are pretty much the same. They're just opposite. That's just the only thing I can see.
This is true.
And a person's music or his or her work remains and inspires you. And, you know, the only thing I think is interesting is a little bit of progress here. Now these rock stars are starting to die in treatment centers instead of in hotel rooms. So it's a step, you know.
You do have a take that is totally unlike anybody else.
In New York's Central Park. The mood was much the same in San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury district, where Garcia and the Dead began their trip into rock and roll history. John Blackstone reports on Garcia's life and times.
Near the birthplace of the hippies in San Francisco's Golden Gate Park, hundreds gathered to remember Jerry Garcia. Not just the leader of the Grateful Dead, the leader of a tribe.
I'm getting choked up as I say this, but it's connected us all together, you know? It's a really cool thing.
I loved him so.
Though Jerry Garcia had a long battle with drug use and looked more like a rumpled grandfather than a rock star, his band's popularity just kept growing. Through his music, Garcia shared with a new generation the spirit of the 60s, the roots of the Grateful Dead.
We would all like to be able to live an uncluttered life, a simple life, a good life, you know, and like think about moving the whole human race ahead a step.
They represented a time and place that went by very quickly, when there was some real optimism and some real sense that values could be changed that would make lives better.
Bob Weir of the Grateful Dead says Garcia did make lives better.
His life was far more a blessing for all of us.
Garcia's music will live on in recordings, but his love was spontaneous live performance. John Blackstone, CBS News, San Francisco.
Well into the night in cities around the country, from New York and Washington to Los Angeles and San Francisco. At times, they seemed like typical Grateful Dead concerts. But this time without the Grateful Dead and the man who brought them to life. Bill Ritter, ABC News, San Francisco.
Entertainment editor Joel Siegel will have more on Jerry Garcia later in this half.
Impromptu vigils to remember the leader of the Grateful Dead. Garcia died of an apparent heart attack at a drug and alcohol treatment center near San Francisco. His music and his lifestyle originated in San Francisco. And CNN's Greg Lefebvre attended a vigil for him there.
The Grateful Dead gave its fans a trip into the past. On news of Garcia's death, fans flocked to Golden Gate Park to play his music and remember. Country Joe McDonald played there too.
I'm getting depressed and I'm in shock over it. It's a very important end to something.
Yeah, Jerry was found dead this morning in his room.
Radio stations in Garcia's hometown played his music and consoled listeners, many of whom were grief-stricken by Garcia's passing.
I went through this in 1986 when Jerry went into his diabetic coma, and I was on the air at the time, and I found out that people needed a shoulder and a hand to hold. They had to review memories and talk about shows.
In the Haight-Ashbury district, where Garcia started, others gathered.
All his songs, everything was so positive.
Music is about how you can take a room full of people and turn them into one big spirit.
Counselors from a nearby crisis center worked the crowd quietly.
I urge all deadheads to grieve privately and with some style and some dignity in the way that Jerry would have wanted.
Fans went online, on the internet, on CompuServe. Fans on America Online displayed the icons for tears and hugs. Long an accomplished painter, Garcia opened a show of his own works. It came just a year after he was hospitalized for exhaustion.
Made a lot of effort to get healthy. Nothing like the threat of death can get your attention.
Garcia's music mixed bluegrass, folk, rock, and country. He stayed true to the original themes throughout 3 decades of music.
Our generation has grown up to appreciate that rock and roll has changed with us, has moved with the times, and so there is still room for us for rock and roll. And the Grateful Dead is exemplary of that kind of a band that had always been beyond rock and roll, beyond faddism, beyond fashion.
Will the band continue to play? Their colleagues believe so, citing the band's anthem, I Will Survive. Greg LaFave, CNN, San Francisco.
To a lot of people. I mean, there are the thousands of Deadheads. I mean, here was a band that even though they didn't put out that many albums, and most of the albums they put out only did sort of, medium or even poor by a lot of today's standards, they, managed to tour consistently, sell 60,000 seats at a baseball stadium, and people really followed them from show to show and really believed in them. And I think it's the same kind of sort of role model, as it were, to use a probably wrong term maybe, but as Lennon or Elvis.
One thing, many people were saddened when they heard about his death. Many people were. Some people weren't surprised when they heard where he died, at a drug rehab center, because Jerry had been candid about his experimentation with drugs and the band's experimentation with drugs over the years, speaking candidly for years. Some of your thoughts on that?
Well, I think obviously Jerry did have, an on and off battle with drugs. We know he'd had some health problems in the past, and as I said, I think he really stood for sort of personal freedom, and I think he really liked, had been attracted to drugs, and obviously I'm not a doctor or anything, so I don't know what the ultimate cause of his death was, but I think certainly the Dead were associated with drugs over the years.
Jane, let's talk with you. You've been a rock critic since the 60s, and you have seen every rock and roll band there is to see. How many times did you see the Grateful Dead in concert?
Well, see, they were at the Coliseum 13 times. I missed some of them, but I tried to get to all of them. But they went a lot of places. They went to the Rubber Bowl, and they played with Bob Dylan. That was a big shot. That was a big one. We remember one of the best of all.
One thing's about Jerry Garcia, he was a gentleman, and if you went to a Grateful Dead concert, inside the arena, the gentleness of the crowd was something that was as amazing as the music.
That's true, and they were respectful. One time, Jerry did a solo, more or less, with a couple of members of the group and other people, and they just left, and no one complained. They said, well, he's so great, we don't complain. And also, there was an intermission lasted an hour. He didn't have a strict sense of go, go, go time, but that was all right, too. The people themselves are very sort of laid back, and they loved it. He had an integrity about him, they felt, and that just musically. And for instance, they would tour before their album came out. They weren't concerned that you would buy their album, and they let people. My nephews have 500 or 600 tapes that they taped at the shows themselves. And none of them alike. That's one thing. No concert was like the last one.
Jane, let me talk to Matt right here. Matt, how old are you?
I'm 25.
25 years old. Why a guy is 25? A lot of Deadheads are young. Jerry Garcia looked like your grandfather, a real nice grandfather.
I think he was just about the same age as my grandfather,
actually.
What was the
appeal?
The appeal, I think, for people of my generation, in terms of the Grateful Dead, is this way to satisfy your wanderlust. Jerry himself at one point said that he thought it was like when he was young in the early 50s, when people could still get on boxcars and sort of hobo their way back and forth across the country, you know, during the era when the beats were coming into prominence. There's a real sense of adventure for young people back then, and I don't really see, and I don't think Jerry saw, a sense of adventure like that outside of the Grateful Dead experience for young people today. My generation, we grew up with television and music videos, safely ensconced in suburbia, and here's a way to really get out there and experience something, and there's a little unpredictability, and you're on the road, and you don't know exactly what's going to happen.
All right, well, Matt Goldberg, Jane Scott, Jim Henke, we could talk about this for many, many more minutes. Good to see you this morning. And Jim, good luck with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Outside San Francisco, he was found at 4:23 a.m. by a counselor at the center, but attempts at CPR failed to revive him.
A man who, a cultural phenomenon, I guess we could say, a rock icon to many through several decades. In this half hour, we're going to look at that phenomenon from the 60s to now and how it shapes the Dead's future. Katie?
Right, needless to say, a lot of Grateful Dead fans are devastated this morning and were yesterday when they heard the news. Also coming up in the...
Since we all see it differently, you know, it's one of those things. It's, but we all know it when it happens. Yeah. It's like a thing you recognize. That's what we've come to over the years.
And the Dead are now appearing in the newest of media, the computer CD-ROM.
We would all like to be able to live an uncluttered life, a simple life, a good life, you know, and like think about moving the whole human race ahead a step or a few steps. And, or half a step. Yeah, or a half a step or anything.
Towards the end of his life, the grueling tour schedules, the cigarettes, the drugs, the overeating, and the alcohol took their toll on Garcia. At times, concerts were canceled because of his poor health. And last night, Garcia was remembered for his music in candlelight vigils across the country.
We do this because of his music. He brings us together in harmony and peace.
We all loved him and we all loved his music. We all just wanted to come out here and show him a little respect.
For Jerry Garcia, it was indeed a long, strange trip. But to his fans, it was not nearly long enough. For today, George Lewis, NBC News, Los Angeles.
Dennis McNally is the longtime publicist of the Grateful Dead, a close friend of Jerry Garcia's. He's in San Francisco at our affiliate KRON-TV. Mr. McNally, good morning.
Good morning, Brian.
Deaths are always untimely. Were you aware that he had the kind of health problems, as serious as they were, that he obviously did?
Well, we've fussed and worried about him for a long time. The depth of them, no. We knew in particular since 1992 when we canceled some shows, that his diabetes was right on the edge of things, and in general that he really needed to take very meticulous care of himself, which was not really his style. He was not a very meticulous person, except as to music. So that it was one of those things we sat and fidgeted about, and he always shrugged off any, you know, concern. And, you know, it was, in fact, you know, the changes that he did make were, in fact, perhaps too little, too late.
Yeah, we're talking about lifestyle changes.
Yes, I mean, since 1992, he'd lost 60 pounds. He exercised pretty regularly. His smoking was at least down to, you know, 5 or 10 filtered cigarettes instead of 3 packs of Camel Straights. In general, he watched his diet, but, you know, it was never 100%. It was, he always cheated a little.
What do you think made him so special and so revered among music fans of the Grateful Dead?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, the style of the Grateful Dead was really set by him. He was authentically charismatic, but he wouldn't lead. He wouldn't dominate, so that if he led by example only. And it was that looseness that defined the audience scene and made it the compassionate and tolerant place it is, and made it the unique phenomenon that it is. In addition, he was truly committed to improvisation, to a group, interactive, not one leader, musical approach. And in that approach, there was this tremendous risk. You flew, and sometimes you crashed, sometimes you fly when you start leaping off cliffs. But in that moment between the time you take off and the time you find out whether you're succeeding or not, there's magic. There's a potential for wonderful things. And he had authentic faith in that, and the audience did too. And that's why they're still around.
He leaves behind a wife whom he married just last year and 4 daughters, one as young as 6 years old. How are they this morning?